Welcome back to Our Perspective. It's your host Mariah here. And as you can see from the title of this episode, we are going to be understanding more about anxious attachment. If you know, you know. If you don't, you're about to find out. Because this is something that is so necessary to talk about and recognize, especially with going through the journey, learning more about yourself, learning more about how you engage with others and how this relates to your childhood trauma, your childhood relationships, and those things like that. And most of us don't even know how a lot of the ways that we have relationships relate to our childhood. Like, honey, when I tell you, okay. Okay. If you see me looking down, I apologize. I have just taken some notes that I will be reviewing because I like to make sense. And sometimes when I go off the whim, I be speaking facts, but I don't be making sense at the same time because it's everywhere. So forgive me for that. Just a special shout out to those who are listening via Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We see you, we hear you, and we love you, and we thank you for supporting us. And yeah, so let's get right into it. There are many different types of attachment styles. And I may do a series on this, honestly, because it's definitely something that needs to be talked about a lot more. And sometimes it may seem like mental health topics and mental health, everything feels oversaturated because it's talked about so much, but you'd be surprised how much misinformation you have, and you'd be surprised people just learn in different ways also. Like, I may tell you, what is an example? I may tell you that something that you do can be a symptom of anxiety, but it's really anxiety, depression, or it may just really be something that you've learned to do growing up, and that's just what it is, So things revolving mental health can be perceived very differently depending on the way you look at it and depending on just a number of factors. So yeah, see, I'm getting off track already. Back to what I was saying. There are different type of attachment styles, like anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and there's a lot that comes with those type of attachments. So what is anxious attachment? Let me just start off with a question. Have you ever felt overly anxious or insecure in any type of relationship? This could be romantic, this can be in a familiar relationship, this could be in a working relationship, those things like that. If you have felt overly anxious and insecure in the relationship, this type of attachment really manifests itself in relationships. And it comes from an abandonment wound. And if you don't know what that is, this pretty much derives from your childhood and the way that you have been raised and the way that you have been taken care of. For example, if a child has a mother who doesn't really pay much mind to her, or she may be on substances, or she may just be working a lot and doesn't have as much time to tend to her child. If the child is feeling some sort of negligence, whether it be negligence to their needs, negligence to their emotions, this starts to form, number one, an avoidance, and number two, an abandonment wound, because you're telling the child that they cannot get their needs met, whether it be emotionally, physically, however. And this doesn't start from when a child is like 2 years old and they can start forming sentences. This starts from when they in the stomach and when they born, like newborn. This starts from as soon as they enter the world. When you feed, change, cuddle, talk to a child, that's where the development starts forming. And if we're not tending to those needs for that child, you're going to see some things. You're going to see some things. And you may not see those things right away, but it's definitely going to manifest into their adolescent, teen years, and into their adulthood. So that's definitely something to think about. When we talk about the fear of abandonment and it manifesting in our relationships and kind of as we grow older, there's a sense of like desire to be close to others and a deep crippling fear of rejection. Like if, for example, I have experienced abandonment in my upbringing and in my childhood, and this can look a variety of different ways, and I get into a relationship and I don't know if the person I'm with really cares about me, although they say they do, or I don't believe that they love me, although they say they do, or if I text the person I'm with and I'm not getting a response back within a 5-minute time frame, then I start thinking about, what is this person doing? Do they really love me? Do they care about me? Are they doing what they're not supposed to do? And start kind of ruminating on different type of scenarios that could be happening as to why they may not be responding in a 5 to 10 minute time frame. That is a fear of rejection. And that has everything to do with the anxious attachment. I'm anxious because you are not responding to me in this amount of time, or I don't know what you're doing, or I don't feel like you love me, although you've said it 100 times. And sometimes it can come off as a means for control for someone in a relationship, like if I'm with somebody. And it may not even be that. It may just be coming from a feeling of fear. And when this happens so consistently in a relationship, whether it be an intimate one or familial one, it can be very detrimental. Let me tell you that. It can be very detrimental. It could be very detrimental for the person who has the anxious attachment and for the person who doesn't. Or you may have someone who has an anxious attachment and the other person is very avoidant. Those two do not click. Do not click. I want to talk about this because I'm feeling anxious and you want to be avoidant about the conversation or the topic. How are they supposed to get along? How are they supposed to get along? Okay. Back to what I was saying, like as far as if I'm not getting a response within a 5 to 10 minute time frame, or I'm having these anxious thoughts, this is called a hypervigilance in regards to your partner's behavior or your partner's actions. I'm overanalyzing and I'm overthinking their behaviors, trying to pretty much see what those behaviors and actions are communicating to me, and that may result into me personalizing everything that they're doing. Just because maybe they don't hold my hand in public this time, that doesn't mean that they don't love me or they don't care about me. Now I'm taking that sign that they didn't hold my hand in public, that they're communicating something to me. And it may not even be that. It may be because their hands are sweating. It may be because they want their hands in their pockets. But I may take it as, this person doesn't love me because they didn't hold my hand. So those are examples of what that kind of would look like. So more about how this shows up in relationships. The person with the anxious attachment is going to constantly be seeking reassurance. The verbal reassurance, like, I love you, I care about you. This doesn't mean that I don't love you. This doesn't mean I don't care about you. Reassurance in their actions, reassurance in their behavior, reassurance in their, like, just verbalizing the reassurance. Someone with the anxious attachment is always going to crave that. And they have a lot of difficulty managing their own insecurities and jealousy in the relationship. And this is something that can be very taxing to the relationship overall. So, that is something that the person with the anxious attachment would have to be open to kind of addressing individually, because this is not solely, like, the anxious feelings and the attachment style is not solely because of the person that they're with. It derives from the abandonment wounds, like I talked about in the beginning. I get in a relationship with somebody and I don't suddenly develop this attachment style. Like, this is coming from a long time ago. And maybe there are some things that have not been addressed before I got in this relationship, and now that I'm in it, it's showing up. And I might not have even known those things were there. Okay. So, like I said, this can be very taxing on the relationship, and it can cause emotional burnout for both people in the relationship. So this is why it's very important to, one, acknowledge your anxious thoughts. Two, being able to kind of self-regulate and self-soothe those thoughts and know that, like, you're secure within your relationship. Obviously, if there are things that show up that, like, have impaired your trust in the relationship or may cause you to feel more distant with your partner, and those are definitely things you can communicate with your partner with. But, there would need to be boundaries within the relationship to be established so this doesn't become draining, pretty much. So why is handling this type of attachment style important? First of all, it's like a deep emotional toll on you and everybody around you. Yeah, it's an emotional toll on you and your relationships, and it's important to heal that for the simple fact that you deserve that. You deserve to not have those thoughts in the front. You deserve to live a life that your thoughts doesn't rid you from certain experiences. You deserve to be able to have a balance and be able to communicate your needs and your feelings to the people in your life without it causing those wounds of abandonment to show up. And you deserve to heal that inner child in you that has kind of longed for those needs to be met. It's important to heal it simply because you deserve it. Point blank, period. Okay? And with healing this type of attachment, it improves your relationships with people. Intimate, familial, all of those things. It improves your self-esteem and the way you see yourself. And it also improves your overall well-being, because depending on the situation and the way it shows up, it can, like, influence your life. it can take a toll on your whole life. And life will pretty much pass you by before your eyes. And I'm not even joking. Like, you will be focused on your thoughts and how other people have made you feel and your abandonment wounds and why they haven't been met and all of those things. And next thing you know, you're 30. And all you have done is go to work and come home. No vacations, no adventures, no meeting new people, no networking, no nothing. Because you let your own thoughts consume you. You let your relationship consume you. You let your wounds consume you. So let's not do that. We're going to work on healing the anxious attachment. So what are some steps you can do to start healing that attachment? First of all, learn about it. Learn about it. Learn about it. Learn about what type of attachment style you have and gain more knowledge about it. That's the first step. Because you can't heal something you don't know about. It's just not going to work. It's just not going to work. Recognize your own patterns without judging yourself. Like, give yourself some compassion to know that these are things that you might not have been aware of before, but now you have learned about these things and you can work towards having better relationships with other people and having a better relationship with yourself overall. Literally. Like, if I didn't know anything about attachment or how I can preserve myself more with boundaries and communicating my needs, I would still be in that cycle over and over and over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because, number one, is good to know. Number two, this is part of the generational trauma that we have. The ways that our parents and grandparents and uncles and aunties and all them people have engaged with us and shown up for us, or we have noticed these things in our family and have like been conditioned to learn these behaviors. We need to break that. We need to break that. Because it's a generational curse. The fear of abandonment, the trauma, everything is being passed on. And imagine if I were to have this type of attachment style and go ahead and have kids with somebody, and I'm still in that constant, anxious, fearful, overthinking, ruminating state, and I don't know anything else. I'm going to pass that on to my kids because that's what they're learning from me. They're learning how to communicate the way I'm communicating. They're learning how to have relationships the way I have relationships with other people because I'm their mother. And I'm going to be the first role model that they have, essentially. So if we don't start unlearning these behaviors before we bring life into this world, we're going to pass it on. We are. And that's why it's extremely important to invest in yourself. Invest in learning more about yourself. Invest in learning about mental health overall. Like, you can never go wrong with that. And the more you learn about mental health, the more you learn about you and your family and your upbringing. Another thing to mention as far as healing this type of attachment is learning self-soothing techniques. And if you don't know what that means, it means self-regulating. And if you don't know what that means, it means knowing how to get yourself back down from having those huge anxious thoughts. Like if I have an anxious thought, oh my God, I'm gonna get into a car accident because my car is not working, and I don't know how I'm gonna get from A to B, and I don't know how I'm gonna go get groceries, and I don't know how to do this. Da, 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 da. If I keep going on and on and on and on and on, and I don't know how to self-soothe myself to get myself back to a rational state where I'm gonna fix my car tomorrow, I'm not gonna go to work, I'm gonna Instacart some groceries, and that's what's gonna be. If I can't get myself into a state where I can problem solve, that looks very destructive. Very destructive for me, for you, for everybody. Everybody. And that's why it's so important to learn some self-soothing techniques. And what that looks like is meditation, journaling, mindfulness exercises, and just building that emotional regulation skill set. And that can just be right in your hobbies. Like if you enjoy video gaming, if you enjoy writing, if you enjoy listening to music, if you enjoy going on a ride, if you enjoy recreational smoking, if you, whatever you enjoy can be your kind of toolkit to self-regulate. I know something with mine is to be able to have a routine. Like if I'm engaging in my routine, it's easier to kind of come back. And making a to-do list and writing. I love to journal. Love it down bad, because you know what? Journaling, you are able to document where you are and how you're feeling in the moment whenever you write it. And then say, for instance, a year or two later, you can see where you were compared to where you are from when you read it. And it's like mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. You can see where your mindset has changed. You can see where your mindset hasn't. You can see, it's like you have a glimpse of your past self. And I feel like that's something that is so important, especially for people like me who are on go all the time. All the time. Working multiple jobs, going to school, busy. And sometimes I don't feel like I have the time to really process my emotions when it comes to certain things. So having the chance to write those things down and then being able to look back where I was is like, oh girl, we was feeling like that. What? And we here right now? Look at you. It creates that confidence, number one, and it creates that level of self-esteem that you can get through things. Even when you feel like things feel like a mountain that's taller than you and you can't see over it, you can still get through it. And documenting those feelings are proof of that when you're able to look back at that. Something that can also help is a therapeutic support, which is having a therapist. If you have listened to any other episode before this, you know me and therapy go together real bad. I am a stan for therapy, okay? First of all, I'm studying social work. Like, that's a given. But I myself have a therapist. And when I tell you, me and my therapist locked in, okay? And it's not something to be ashamed of. I was in that space too before I started therapy. And I wanted to be a therapist. How does that make sense? Tell me. Okay. I told myself I can't be somebody on the opposite side of the chair providing the service if I don't even know how it feels, or I don't even know what it's like. And there were a lot of things going on in my life at the time that pretty much influenced me to go to therapy, and it was the best decision I have ever made. Best decision I have ever made. And even if you don't find the person that you like initially, don't get discouraged. Therapy is very much like dating. You gotta find somebody who clicks with you, and you gotta find somebody you think you feel like you can get along with, because you're gonna be sharing some things about yourself, and you're gonna eventually become vulnerable with this person, and you want to be able to be comfortable. Nobody's saying you gotta tell your whole life story on the first session. Nobody's saying that at all, because like I said, it's like dating. You build that relationship with your therapist, but at the same time, it doesn't work unless you do. So if you're not putting in the work to be able to better yourself, your therapist can't work for you. Like, they cannot do the work for you. So, highly recommend. And addressing these things as far as like attachment styles and childhood wounds and those things like that can be very helpful to address in therapy. And they will be able to point out things or share things with you that you may not have even thought of. I'm telling you. Or you may have experienced something X amount of times, or constantly running into the same person, same issue, whatever. And your therapist may say, don't you think that blah, blah, blah. I wasn't ready for that. Like, pump the brakes, honey. Pump the brakes. But it's so healing within itself and so validating to know that, one, there's language for the things that you're experiencing, and two, all the other stuff is not happening for no reason. Like, there is an explanation for these things. And you just need a little bit of assistance with navigating that. That's all it is. A therapist is not going to solve your problems. We're not heroes. All heroes don't wear capes, but we cannot solve your problems for you. Now I'm speaking from a therapist perspective. Okay, let me get my degree first. Yes, definitely seek out therapeutic support. And building secure behaviors is going to be essential with taking steps towards healing this attachment. Practicing open communication, being able to verbalize how you feel with the people you need to communicate with is important. And just being able to have that level of vulnerability, but also being prepared to communicate that. Because if you're not prepared to communicate it, and it comes out in a way that's not receptive, like aggressive, or aggressive, or someone may take it the wrong way, it can be explosive. So kind of thinking about, if this is going on and this is how I'm feeling, let me communicate that. I feel like boom, 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 boom. Now, you do you. Because that's reinforcing the anxious attachment mindset. I feel boom, boom, boom. So, definitely practice ways you can openly communicate about the things that are bothering you. Also, setting and respecting boundaries are important. Very important. Very, very important. Setting and respecting boundaries, because number one, you need to set boundaries to preserve yourself. It's not a reflection of other people. It's a reflection of what you need. And two, you need to be respectful for other people's boundaries, because those are boundaries that they need to set for them and what they need. So kind of like a give type of relationship. You don't like this? Okay, well, I don't like this. And how can we compromise and meet in the middle? That's important. And lastly, like, surrounding yourself with supportive people. If you are constantly surrounding yourself with people who are not really good influences or kind of weigh you down more than contributing to the relationship with you, then maybe that's something that needs to be reassessed. But surrounding yourself with supportive people is very important, because even when you're in those moments where you need to communicate your needs, they can kind of assist you with that also. As your podcast host, I want to encourage you to reflect on your attachment style, number one, and how you can begin your healing journey as far as your relationship with yourself and your relationship with other people, and how you show up in those spaces. And that will help you kind of have that level of understanding, the level of awareness of yourself and others, and ultimately take those steps towards healing. Essentially, you want to be able to have those boundaries for yourself and for others, and to start preserving yourself. Like, it's okay. It's okay. I promise you, sometimes it feels like it's not, and it feels like the end of the world. But at the end of the day, it is okay. And as long as you keep showing up as yourself, and as long as you believe that everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be okay. Trust me. If you have resonated with today's episode, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let us know some things about your attachment style or some things that you have done to start your healing journey. Let us know what kind of topics you would like to hear in the next coming episodes. And seize the day and don't let the day seize you. Until next time.